Universal Light, Pure Love Ministries.
I'm Aaron Fowler.
Holistic Mystic Norma.
And welcome Omar to the show from Watchers Talk. He usually does a lot of shows, but you never see his face, so I'm pretty privileged that he was going to show his face. He's usually pretty anonymous. But I wanted to have him on for so long. He's had me on his show for a couple of times on YouTube, Facebook. Check him out, Watchers Talk. A lot of
excellent show.
What I get out of it, I was studying and kind of going back and studying these ancient mysteries, hieroglyphs, petroglyphs, any kind of ancient artifact, and kind of digging deeper, because we know that we have, Egyptologists, and certain people that hold back information, that hold back parts of our history, and I think you do a good job of jumping down these rabbit holes with very intelligent people, and people have spent a lot of time. The guests you have on are phenomenal.
Oh, yes.
And you spend a lot of time digging deeper, and you're kind of that Indiana Jones of the internet, and basically sharing this information with the people.
Oh, there you are. I can hear you.
Hello.
Wonderful.
Oh, she made it with sound.
Now her sound works, of course.
My tablet.
All right, hold on. Let me see. Let me see if I can change this. Hold on.
You can. It's going to work beautifully.
All right, I'm going to exit out of this one.
It's going to be so beautiful. Yay.
I'm going to add Tammy. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Anyway,
yes.
Why don't you give us a little bit of your background and kind of what brought you into this line of work?
To do this sort of thing.
Well, I've been at this for a long time, but here on the internet, just I guess a couple of years, 2-3 years. I would say about 3 years. I've been at it on the internet, but prior to that, I was just researching and kind of just learning for myself, and wanted to know where I came from, where humans came from, and who I am, and kind of what have you, the basic questions that we all ask ourselves. And this one day on Facebook, I got added to a group, the Learned Ones, and prior to that, I had no knowledge that you can actually, there were communities like that on Facebook, or even on the internet for that matter. And so I really dug it, and I was like, oh wow, I've got material that I can share. So I dug back and started posting stuff, and I've got lots on paper, I have lots on computer. This started for me when I was about, I would say about 12 or 13. I came across the book Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods, like most people have, and I couldn't put the book down. I just, I read it all the way through, and was pretty tired the next day. Went to school, came home, had a nap, and picked it up, and I read it again. Because the way I was raised in an Islamic household, and pray 5 times a day. You got to fast for Ramadan for 30 days, and follow the rituals and the ceremonies. And when I read von Daniken, that really threw everything out the window for me, because I began questioning. I was like, well, what is this? This guy's saying this, but I've been taught this. This makes a lot more sense, what he's saying, than this religious studies over here, because I always had my doubts. So the journey really began then, and I kind of put religion along the way on the back burner, because I came to realize that it's man-made, and it has no value to me. And I just want to have nothing to do with it. Instead, I want to look deeper into myself and find out what's beyond my physical flesh. And that's kind of what led me on my journey, just to discover that. And along the way, I've meditated, and I've done lots of stuff, and I've talked to shamans and psychics and such along the way. And it's been a pretty adventurous road for me, and learned a lot. So that's why now I find that it's my responsibility as a member of this community, the human community, to share the knowledge that I've gained over the years. And I know people are asleep, and there's a lot of people that are asking questions. So I'm mostly geared towards people who are asking questions. If you're fast asleep, then you're fast asleep. There's nothing I can do about it. You're not ready, so you're just going to stay sleeping. But the ones that have unplugged themselves and are beginning to ask questions, That's who I'm geared towards, right? That's my main focus, not advanced researchers. Well, that's my focus because that's who I want to bring on my shows and get them to deliver their presentations and their knowledge. Along the way,
Yeah.
I learn from that, and everyone else who watches, they learn from that, and then I go back and I watch my videos again and again and again and again. I probably watch my videos more so than other people do, but you find new information. It's like watching a movie. First time you watch it, it's all good, but the second time you watch it, the third time you watch it, you begin picking things out, and you're like, hey, wow, I never saw that before. And it's kind of the same thing with the videos that I make. I go back and I listen to them, and because during the interview you miss a lot, right? Because you're you're looking for key points, key words and such during the interview, and when that word comes up, you gotta jump on it, right? Don't let the opportunity pass you, because in a couple of minutes, that question might not be viable at that time, because now you're talking about something different. It's like talking about giants and bringing in, I don't know. Dwarfs, all of a sudden it doesn't. It doesn't.
So, out of all of the shows you've done, what is the strangest show you've ever done, or the one that's probably the most profound to you?
Well, each one of them I think are profound for me, because I learn from every single one. Right? That's kind of like asking which is your favorite child. Right, they're all my favorites.
Okay, so if you were forced to choose one,
So rude.
I think I would have to go with Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay from The Hidden History of Humanity. It's Vedic research, and that really, opened up my eyes. I thought humanity was slightly younger than the numbers that he's giving, but I had a suspicion that humanity is far, far older than a few thousand years, few million years, even up to like 30 million years. But when he started throwing out the numbers of like 150 million years at the minimum, I was like, what? I found something, right?
That's what I was told. I was actually told that. It's 150 million years we've been on this earth, human history.
That's right.
150 million years, and there were actually others before us too.
That's right. 150 is like just the bare bottom and minimum that we can reach back, but that's like far, far older than that. I'm not a recipient of the Anunnaki theory of creation, where we're created as a slave race to mine gold for aliens. That doesn't sit well with me, because I'm not a slave, number one. Number two, I chose to come here to this world, so I didn't choose to come here to be a slave. And I'm energy, so I make my own choices, not something else coming out of the skies. So Philip Lindsay, when he said that, it kind of just really solidified my line of thinking as to why, hey, I'm not the only one, kind of thing, right? And so yeah, if there was one that I would have to pick, I would say Philip Lindsay, Dr. Sam Smir Osmanovic of the Bosnian pyramids. He was another one that really opened my eyes as to what's happening in Bosnia, and the gravity of the depth of that area. I had no idea, so it really opened me up on that. I could go on, but and the third one I would say would be with Aaron Fowler, our psychic shaman, the first talk that he ever had. To me, that was a profound talk. We really connected, and I'd say that Aaron, you're really the only one that I've fully connected with out of all the interviews. I think I've done like 110. 120 of them, but I would say you and Ildi are the ones that I've really connected with, and I've consistently talked with on a weekly basis, right? So it's I would say those would be my top three. out of the 110, 115 that I've done so far.
I feel like we're very connected. We connected quickly, and I love being on your show. I love watching your show.
Oh yeah.
And folks, if you're who are watching, share this out, please. Check him out. Watchers Talk on YouTube. He's got watcherstalk.com, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
And on Facebook as well. He's got a Facebook page. But I mean, really gets into the details. I mean, these are master researchers that he has on his show, and it's really important to really understand our history a lot better than we have, and that we've learned growing up. And he's really digging up some good tidbits and some good secrets from history, and I strongly suggest you watch.
Right.
Tammy, how are you doing? Can you hear us now? Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, it looks like
I think she's off. I think her thing's off. But anyway, she's streaming, but for some reason I'm not hearing her. Oh, she is a little frozen though.
Is she muted?
Yeah, she's muted right now.
Yeah, her microphone's muted.
Yeah, your microphone's muted. But anyway, so do we have any questions from the? I can't. For some reason, I'm not seeing my stream.
From the comments?
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm not hearing her. Here.
Yeah, she's muted right so, now. Yeah, we're getting. Tammy, you're going to need your headphones. But anyway, I think you're getting a lot of. Your mic is hot. Do you have any questions from the?
I got a feedback here, Aaron. Somebody's volume is up and it's coming through.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's Tammy's. For some reason.
So one question is, from your perspective, what is our history?
One question. Oh, we have a question for you, Omar.
Okay.
This is from where?
Yeah, I don't know.
So what is our history? That's pretty big. Yeah, what is it that you've come to understand?
Well, from what I see, humans are kind of dime a dozen. We're here in this solar system, and I think we colonized this solar system a few 100 million years ago, probably up to 300 million years ago. But our original source, I think, is the Sirius star system, and from the Sirius star system, we've colonized other solar systems as well, and other star systems like the Pleiades and this solar system, and God knows which other ones that we're in. But I think we've been here for a minimum 300 million years, and along the way, we've suffered quite a lot. At one time we were quite an advanced civilization, far more advanced than we are today. But cataclysms happen. We live on the surface of a rock that's hurtling through space at a few million miles an hour.
That's right.
So we're bound to run into things. The surface is always moving. So and we've had our turbulences, and somewhere along the way, we've lost our way, and we lost our way, I believe, about I'd say about 10,000-12,000 years ago is when really the first evidence we see, and due to our cataclysms that we've gone through, and the turbulences that we've gone through. Like what my thinking is that about 100,000 years ago, when the last ice age set in, humanity went underground and lived in cities. The kind of where the hollow earth theory is coming from, I think. And about 12,000 years ago, according to Graham Hancock and the Younger Dryas theory, that the great melt-off happened and humans began coming out. So now imagine, you're living underground for 100,000 years. There's 3 generations in a century, 4 generations in a century. So if 100,000 years you're living underground, that's 300,000 generations that we lived underground. And during that 300,000 generations, that's a huge number. Imagine that. We're living beneath the ground
Yeah.
with all this ice above us for 300,000 generations. Some knowledge is lost. Of course, some knowledge is
Mind-blowing.
lost.
Right.
You know, a lot of knowledge is lost.
Yeah.
So 12,000 years ago.
So I've got a lot of visions of the.
Pardon me?
Right. I've had a lot of visions of the inner Earth. What do you think about the inner Earth as far as what is your concept? How do you perceive it?
Well, for me,
Do you perceive it as more of a astral thing or a physical thing or maybe both?
I'm thinking it's more astral thinking than actual physical thinking. You know, my opinion is that the Earth is round, is solid. There's caverns in it. You know, we've you know, gone ahead and, you know, created some artificial caverns inside the Earth. But when we're talking about the inner Earth, I think we're talking about our inner selves. You know, because our inner selves were made of this Earth. You know, our physical avatar that we're using right now is made from this Earth. So, you know, you have to look in when you're talking about the inner Earth. You know, the Earth is a living, you know,
That
organism
makes a lot of sense.
that's floating through space. You know, it needs energy from the sun just as we do. So the Earth is alive, and we're the children of that Earth. So, you know, when you're talking about inner Earth and stuff, my opinion is that, you know, it's more spiritual than anything else, because we're half physical and half spiritual, right? So, you know, that's the polarity and the duality of us, and that's also the duality of the Earth as well, because the Earth, you know, is the Earth, and we're parts of it, like nerves, you know, sticking out of the ground.
That's a great explanation.
It really is.
Wow, that one, yeah, that's a great explanation. Tammy, if you want to unmute your mic, you can ask Omar some questions if you'd like.
I
Fernando
think Tammy's
Vasa.
frozen again.
Oh, Fernando Vasa actually asked, what is the involvement of the galactics in our current timeline in regards to planetary liberation?
Well,
you're getting some good questions there.
The timeline, you know, that really depends on which timeline you're talking about, because we're here in this timeline, but then there's the Mandela effect as well, that where there's another timeline and then another timeline. So in this timeline, you know, we're being treated pretty harshly, and ET seems to be involved in it. You know, they have you know, policy going on. They hear nothing, see nothing, do nothing. You know, they're violating humans. They're violating us. So, you know, if there's any galactic thing that's happening in this timeline, it's to punish, you know, and to abuse and to, you know, basically treat us the same way as we're treating the Earth and the animals on this Earth. You know, you ever see those videos on Facebook where animals are just being seriously tortured, and you know, that is you know, that karma and that energy, because there's no good karma and there's no bad karma. Karma is just karma. It's your energy that's going to create that karma. So if you're creating bad karma and bad energy, that bad energy is going to go floating through the Earth, and every single thing that it touches and every single being that it touches is going to affect it. And so those things are going to feel the sadness and the brutality that was inflicted on this animal onto yourself. So the brutality that we're causing here on Earth, we're feeling it. You know what I'm saying? You know, the Earth's energy is affecting us because of the way we're treating her. You know, it's like the old saying goes, you know, treat others as you want to be treated. So if we're going to treat the Earth like shit, well, hey man, the Earth is going to treat us like shit. You know, and our ancients, they had it pretty good because they respected the Earth, and the Earth respected them back by giving them bountiful of food, and you know, and it took care of them, and you know, sometimes give them harsh weather, sometimes not. You know, but their life wasn't as far stressed as what we seem to find here in this timeline. Right now, there's another timeline prior to Mandela, the Mandela effect, right? So maybe in that timeline, there's some sort of a galactic, you know, cooperation and collaboration happening, but no way, not here, because these ETs are coming here, they're violating us. Just think, when you're sleeping in your room at night, they're coming into your home, into your bedroom, they're taking you, they're physically harming you, and then erasing all your memories and then bringing you back. If that's not a violation, then I'm not sure what is. That's like kidnapping
I
and
don't know what is,
torture.
right?
Awesome, brother. Well, we're going deep into ET. Yes. Well, what do you? I feel like there's a big connection between the Middle East or out in the Middle East. I feel like there's some ancient technology or something very secret there, other than just the oil. I mean, you know how the NWO works, right?
Yeah,
so it's like they multitask. They're very synergetic about things. So
Well,
yeah, I feel like there's something going on in the Syria area, especially.
yeah, of course, there's lots going on in that area. There's lots of discoveries being discovered in there. Satellites are bringing us a lot of information from that area. So there's definitely, some sort of, I don't know, I wouldn't say technology, or physical technology, but there's something that's definitely going on there. My opinion is that there's a Black Knight satellite, which no one can prove, but in the scripture and in other books, it talks about an eye in the sky. So we have this Black Knight satellite. Well, it's been dubbed Black Knight satellite, but in my opinion, what's happening is that Black Knight satellite is emitting a frequency which is making people violent in the Middle East. You got to remember, this is the area where the Tower of Babel was being built so that we can reach the gods, and the gods said no. And then they divided us and gave us different languages so that we wouldn't be able to cooperate and communicate with one another and collaborate with one another. And that same thing has been going on for the past so many thousands of years. And I think this Black Knight satellite is emitting some sort of a frequency which is affecting the people in that area and thus making them violent. Because there's been studies done now where we've taken a frequency and emitted it towards mice, and those mice become violent. They begin attacking one another and become very defensive, and they just want to chew and fight to the death, essentially. But as soon as you remove that frequency, they become benign again. So I think that's the same thing that's happening in the Middle East, because you look at the rest of the planet, it's fine. There's really not much going on. There's not much wars happening in Asia. There's nothing happening in Europe. There's nothing going on in South America. And there's nothing happening here in North America. And Africa, that's where it's all happening. Africa and the Middle East, not even all of Africa, just northern part of Africa, where ancient Mesopotamia, Sumeria, all those areas where the seven wonders of the world originate. Especially where it's happening, because this all has to do with that built. Because when we came out after 300,000 generations, we lost a lot of knowledge, and having lost a lot of knowledge, and we came out, it's kind of like a culture shock too. Got to remember, you've lived underground for so many generations. You've never seen the sky. You've never seen animals. You've never seen nothing like that. So you come out as a culture shock. So you're, and then the frequency, and that's the frequency. Fight, and kill each other. So I think that's kind of what's happening. Kind of like a diversion. Because everybody, focused over here in a greater plan of things, and over here you do something else. But unfortunately, we've been hijacked over here because North America is more like an experiment. I got a feedback going on. There's not much what's happening in Asia.
I was trying to get Tammy in, but for some reason we're getting too much background noise. So sorry, Tam. So let's see. We have any other questions?
Let's see here. Hello, Elizabeth, Kelly Cal.
What do you see coming for our future?
Yeah.
Well, you go ahead, and then I'll answer what I think.
What's the question? Sorry.
You were asked a question. What do you see coming for our future?
Well, I don't think you want to hear that answer, because it's nothing good. So I'd personally like to stay away from that question. But on the other hand, it's really all up to us. And if majority of the population's asleep and we're being controlled, and people are like zombies running around just doing shit and accumulating material because they think if they have the most of material at the end of their life, they're going to win whatever race that they're involved in, then there's nothing but doom ahead of us. But thankfully, there's a lot of light workers that are waking up, like yourselves, that are going around spreading the message.
Yeah,
and
that's the part. That's the big part is working. Yep.
It's uniting.
Sorry, man, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's a bit of a lag, but yeah, what I was saying is, it's time to stop looking for a savior and understand that savior is us.
Yep.
We are the ones that are here to help save humanity. I mean, Mother Earth, she's a tough. When she wants to shake and rumble, nothing's going to hurt her. It's more about the living things on this planet, and of course, yeah, pollution, all these things, they need to be handled in a different way. But I feel like Mother Earth has a great way of cleansing in this cosmos, and the universe, the multiverse has a great way of cleansing things. What we're trying to protect is humanity and all living things on this earth.
Yeah.
Our spirit.
And I think, we do need to be more aware of what's going on in our polluted air, and we do need to be more aware before we throw something on the ground. Same old common sense. But yeah, there is an awakening Galatian age, and now it's become the disclosure age. And that's what's going on, and that's why we're evolving. We decide where we want to go with that. That's that we don't all have to go in the same direction. Hopefully we want, most of us to go in a positive direction, but there are some that aren't going to be positive.
Right.
Yeah.
That's life. That's part of dealing with negativity is part of our life's experience.
Yeah.
That's the consequence of our actions. The suffering that we have to feel is the actions, of our ancestors. We have to pay for that. It's like, it's kind of, what would be a good analogy for that? Like, really, it's...
Well, it's kind of like, think about us right now. What we're doing right now, it affects generations to come.
Yeah.
What we do now affects generations to come. So I see what you're saying. We're paying for the karma of the generations that came before us.
That's right. It's action. Every action has a reaction, and every action has a consequence and a reward attached to it. It just really depends on your own actions. So, it comes back to, that question, what do we see in our future? Well, what do you see in your future? What I see in my future is love.
Yeah.
I see love in my future. I see my children growing up and having kids. I see people awakening. I can see me going into Tim Hortons and talking to somebody about giants and extraterrestrials, and them looking at me and, not see me as a cuckoo or, call me a conspiracy theorist, anything like that. That's what I see for my future. But when it comes to global affairs, it really, that's beyond my control, and there's nothing I can do about it. It all starts in our community. Your actions will affect your neighbor, and their actions will affect their neighbors, and their actions will affect your community. And then when your community is positive, that'll affect another community, and then so on and so on and so on. It's not an overnight thing. It's going to take a long time, because it's taken a long time to get to this position. And my concern is our spirituality.
Yep.
We've lost touch with our spirituality, and we seem to think that materialism is the key focus here in life. And as long as we keep our focus on that and accumulating wealth, and that's our primary goal and drive in life, then I don't see those people getting too far and their future being any good. Sure, you have lots of money, but do you really have any friends? Or are your friends because of your money? Or are they your friends because of you? So you may accumulate a lot of wealth, but in the same hand, you're losing a lot as well, because people's greed will, trump anything. Just absolute anything. There's people in this world that will stab their mothers in the back for $5. So, my concern is spirituality, because if you're spiritual, you wouldn't stab your mom in the back for $5, or your neighbor. And that seems to be, it doesn't get taught here in North America. When you go to South America, spirituality, a lot of people are aware. You go to Africa, same thing. Go to Asia, same thing. These first world countries, like Northern Europe and North America and Australia, and countries like that. I find they're lacking in morals and spirituality and principles in general, because they think that they have wealth and material, that they're more powerful than you are. You know, that's disappointing, because spirituality is being hijacked from everyone over here. And that's kind of shit.
Exactly.
Because we're spiritual beings, right? We came here on this world, that spiritual journey. It's like we had a conversation on Messenger not that long ago. Kind of briefly talked about my abandoned bodies theory. You want me to talk about that for a minute? My abandoned.
Yeah, go for it, man. Go for it. I'm enjoying this.
For me, it's what I think happens is that we're energy, we're 100% energy. We are God energy. Where God is everywhere, right? There's that God energy, and I believe that we're that same thing. We're part of that God energy. Imagine, some cotton candy, and that's God energy, that cotton candy, and then you take a little fluff off of it, and this is God energy as well. This little piece that you just took off, and that's you. Now, that energy, we decide that we want to come here to this planet in this timeline and in this dimension, and we want to have a physical experience of what's happening right here on the ground at this time. So we communicate with our soul group, because we each have a soul group, like the soul family. We communicate with them that are already here having that same experience in this dimension or in this density. Then, we tell them, say, hey, I want to come here. I want to have this experience. Because remember, when you go to sleep, you're not here on Earth anymore. You're somewhere else. You're in your natural state. You're out there. You're no longer down here anymore. You're up here communicating with your soul family, relaying your experiences. So you make a deal with them, say, hey, I want to come down here. I want to have an experience here on this earth. So you choose the way you look. You choose the experiences that you're going to have in life. That's what they call fate. So you're going to have your, you choose what you're going to have. You choose what you're going to look like. You choose the mate that you're going to have. And then you come here to this world to have that physical experience. But I find what happens along the way is that if the body or the mind of this physical avatar becomes corrupted due to the assimilation of this planet, because when you come here for the first 5 years, you're free to do as you want. But even during those 5 years, since the 70s, we've been bombarding our kids with television, so we've been brainwashing them in that way. Now, when these kids are born, when they come here, they remember where they come from. So at 5 years old, we send them to the sausage factory so that they can be assimilated into, the indoctrination that we have here on this world of material and wealth and accumulation. And, it's always a competition, and you have to you got to be number one, yada, yada, yada. But I think what happens along the way, if the body becomes too corrupted and the mind becomes too corrupted, then the spirit, your energy, abandons that body and says, I can no longer work with this body because it can't carry out the goals that I need for it to do. It's like you're not going to go 4x4ing in a Chevette. If somebody gives you a Chevette and says, here, go 4x4ing, you're going to say, well, no, I can't 4x4 in this. I need a fucking 4x4. To go where I need to. So the spirit's saying the same thing about the body. If the body is too dirty, and if the body can't be cleansed, then at that time, the spirit abandons the body. Now, the body is simply just not going to die. My opinion is that the body remains because it has a cycle that it needs to go through, just like everything else here on this planet. Once it's born, it has to go through the cycle. So the body carries on, and these people are what I call it, become zombies. And these zombies are the ones that are going around terrorizing the planet. These are the ones that are like serial killers. These are the rapists, the child molesters, the people that kill millions of people, crimes against humanity, things like that are extremely heinous crimes, but not even violently, but mentally as well.
That's a systematic,
ritualistic
type.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Where, it's not violent.
Ritualistic type of...
looks like we got a lag here.
Is actually really... That's like ingrained... Well, I mean, talk about, mind control. I mean, they actually have towns all over the world, including the U.S., where they actually grow up in that tradition of, mind controlling their kids, and then their kids mind controlling their kids, and they
That's
usually,
right.
they trait families, so they
Yeah.
don't do it to their kids usually, but they'll have their neighbors do it. I mean, that's crazy. They have whole towns that are just full of
Rotten people.
secret operatives that are doing this weird, crazy, psychopathy.
I think
All this
that's happening.
psychopathy that's going on.
I think that's happening because the leaders, the powers that be, are aware of this abandonment of these bodies. So, I think what they're doing is that they're trying to force corruption into people's minds and bodies, so the spirit will abandon the body. So another, a demonic force can inherit that body, and then once it inherits that body, it can go out and carry out the orders of its master, or carry out the whatever it needs to do. So because gotta remember, these demons, they can't create bodies. They physically can't. They can only occupy. So if the powers that be know that if you do certain things to a body and to the mind, and the spirit that's inside abandons that body, then you're left with this vessel, and this vessel can be occupied, and thus it can carry out whatever it needs to do. So there's a spiritual war. There's a galactic spiritual war happening.
I never know how to exactly explain that, but that was a very good way of explaining it, because I've been stuck on that for a long time. I felt kind of that way. It's not necessarily that we lose our soul per se, but that spirit, that essence that is truly our connection will, yes, if you decide willingly to just say, no, I'm going to
be all of the material,
or
and all about,
whether it's because of mind control or
yeah.
choice or whatever it is. Yeah, there does come a point where, you're no longer savable, I guess. And the spirit will kind of just say, okay, well, I'll just go do my thing over here then. And
that's right.
You do yours.
Exactly. That's what I think is happening. That's why the reincarnation.
And that's what you were saying. You were saying this earlier. We were talking about this. I think it's important because we live in that dual type of world of, physicality and spirituality, and that material and ethereal. It's good to keep a balance. That's what we're here for. So yes, it's okay to make money, but when you get to a point where it's just grossly, disgustingly, I'm going to start using it to change, the world and have everybody indoctrinated. There's plenty of people that make a lot of money that give a lot of it away as well, for the right reasons.
Right.
But I think that that's important. Rich people that are well aligned that spirituality and that real spirituality. Yeah. But it's important to remember that materialism, when you're too far deep into it, you won't feel that connection.
No, you'll lose it because your spirit has already abandoned your body a long time ago, because it realized that that's your primary focus. And our energy, got to remember, we're energy, right? We're always energy. We've been energy since the beginning of time, since the creation of God. Wherever God came from, that's where we came from, because we are it, right? So we spend majority of our time in an energetic form. So when we take this avatar and we come here to this world, we're on a vacation. You know what I'm saying? We come here to taste, to eat food that this planet has to offer, smell the flowers, the ocean,
that's it,
the trees. We like getting drunk because we like the way it feels, like getting stoned because we like the way it feels.
That's right.
Because we like the way it feels. We're here to experience the five senses, because it's a vacation. You've taken this form to experience physicality. So while you're here, the goal is not to accumulate. The goal is to experience love, physical love, because in energy you can give that love, and you can receive that love constantly. But the drive to feel it physically is, it's a strong drive because we're here, right? And we like it so much because we reincarnate. And we keep coming back.
Right.
Maybe maybe you abandoned your body the last time. It didn't work out for you, so you wanted to come back. And maybe that's what the tunnel at the end of the white tunnel is. The birth canal. You're leaving this body here, and you're walking down this, the tunnel. The light at the end of the tunnel, but that white light at the end of the tunnel can also be the birth canal. to where you're taking another physical form someplace else,
That's
and
right.
you're
That's
seeing
deep.
daylight on the other end. So
Yep.
there are many explanations. It just really depends on how open your mind is, how
Yep.
open to concept you are, and how far you can visually carry your own ideas. And I always say, if you can visualize it and believe it, then it'll manifest itself.
Yep.
If you try
You can
real
entertain a
hard,
thought. You can entertain a thought or an idea without believing it, but it's
That's
important
right.
that you entertain the thoughts,
That's
right?
right.
And
Be
that's
open-minded.
let's go in different places because we talked about this ever dimensional or multidimensional universe that we live in. We have multi-dimensions that are happening in these different timelines,
Right.
where we're in a different timeline doing something totally different, or being a totally different in a totally different career, totally different relationship. So yes, these things are all valid, but we live in this timeline. Right. So it's important to keep that physical, yes, and not leave in the spiritual and be completely head in the clouds.
That's right.
That's where I think the more focus needs to be on the physical is, yes, we are human. Let's, like you said, let's experience.
Yes.
That's right.
Let's walk into a restaurant and let's have their best tequila and their best meal. They're special.
Exactly.
That's the experience. Let's take a trip to Mexico and experience the pyramids. That's really through our experience and our connection with other people helps our soul to evolve and grow.
That's right. Exactly.
And learning new ideas.
And to become that God energy that we come from, to become as great as that God energy, right? That's the driving force, right? Because we have one God.
Right.
That's the energy we've taken from it. Now we're aspiring to become just like it, just like we aspire to become like our parents. So it's the same thing Paul said, Aaron. That's that's like on a galactic level and on this physical plane as well. Only a shaman can give you advice like that.
Only someone who's connected to the world and connected to the cosmos. That's it. Just feel the connection, the micro, the macro. Anybody can access it, but are you willing to entertain the thought?
That's right. As above, so below.
The emotion, entertain the experience. Right?
That's right, man. That's right.
Tammy has a couple of questions. Since her microphone doesn't work or she's having problems with the mic, she has a couple of questions. Tammy, if you want to unmute, you can now you just turn your phone down that you're watching it on, but unmute and just ask him some questions. But she does have a question. Let's see here. So she said, when the spirit leaves the body, where does it go? That's from Tammy.
Well, I don't know where it goes, but I can tell you one thing. It, it's no longer on this plane, right? We're here in this plane, in this timeline.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
There you are.
I am wondering,
there we go.
so when the spirit chooses to leave the body, where does spirit go? Back to God's source? Or does it just continue in a form of energy out there in the cosmos? Or what happens to the spirit when it decides to leave the body?
Tammy, I can't give you that answer. I don't know the answer as to where the spirit goes. My interpretation on that, that's the answer that I've been seeking, the question that you've asked. And my best guess to that is that once the spirit leaves, it's in the cosmos. There's no great hall that God sits in. God is everywhere. He's energy in all dimensions, in all parallel universes. And we just simply, it's kind of like if you take a grain of salt, throw it in the ocean, where does it go? It becomes part of the ocean. Right? So I think what happens is that we go back to our source. And then from that source, we have that independent conscious thought for ourselves. Because got to remember, we have free will, not only here, but up there as well. And then that time, we choose where we want to go. Because you got to remember, the past, the present, and the future is all happening at one time. So
That's
if it's all happening at one time, then this is an illusion. None of this is real because you're someplace else reminiscing back, thinking back on your
Right.
experience here on this plane and in this timeline. You could have chosen to be born in, the 300s or the 3600s, but you chose to be born in this time and in this timeline because there's something that you want to experience here in this timeline. Not 100 years ago or 100 years from now. There's just something that your spiritual desire is for this timeline. So when you go back to the source, then maybe you'll stay there for God knows how long, because there's no linear time there. There's no such thing as time there. Everything is forever. There's only linear time here. Then you choose. Then you decide that, hey, I want to go back to Earth, or I want to go back to, I want to be a Venetian and go to Venus, or I want to be a, Palladian. I want to go and experience what it's like to be a Palladian, or I want to come back as a gray, or whatever, right? Or I want to come back as a bird, or, a dog. Who knows? But my best analogy on that one would be that I think we go back to the source, but when we're in that source, we have that free will and independent thought, and we choose to do what we want to do. And the people that we connect with here, those are the people that become part of our soul group that we belong to when we're in our source energy. And those are the kind of like cliques, right? Where we hang out amongst each other, and that's our family groups, and that's where we are, and we collaborate and work with one another, and there's no hate, right? There's just light, because light illuminates, and I'd rather be in the light.
There's no hate because there's no fear. In the ethereal worlds and the higher dimensions, the fear is less and less, and that's why, that's really what causes a lot of the, the conflict here is the fear.
That's right.
Whether it's given to us by ETs, whether it's, sending out waves at us, or we have that within us as well.
Yeah.
Well, Cold War is
because I feel like. What was that?
Cold War is the great example. Russians are arming themselves with nuclear bombs because they think the Americans are going to bomb them, and Americans are, building their arsenal because they think the Russians are going to come over there and bomb them, and there's nothing but fear back and forth.
Right.
Have you ever seen the movie Dr. Strangelove?
Which one?
Dr. Strangelove.
No,
Peter
I don't
Sellers.
think I have.
Oh man, you gotta watch it. It's older, but man, that's what it's based. Yeah. They were making fun of this in like the early 70s, and we've got this weapon of mass destruction the Russians are building, so the Americans feel like they have to go destroy it, and so they go to destroy it with nukes, and then they're going to use this weapon of mass destruction. It's like, no, showing your strength through more nuclear weapons and more weapons of mass destruction does not help and aid and deter it.
Right.
It makes it worse, which is like where we're at right now. It's crazy. We're being ran by psychopaths. Yeah. We're being led by psychopaths.
This should happen, in my opinion, about, around the time of Jesus. Right after Jesus, I think humanity got hijacked, and because Jesus brought a message of love, unity, community, and love, most importantly, and acceptance, right? And at that time, I think is when humanity was hijacked, and right from that point on, we've been in trouble. We've spilled more blood the last 2,000 years than we probably have, in our previous history.
Right.
I'm going back like 150 million years when I talk about our previous history, right? Because, I know now, right, that we go back that far. So when people try to tell me, 12,000 years, 60,000 years, I say no. If they tell me 60,000 years ago I was a monkey, I'm get very upset at that because I'm not. Right? That's all part of control as well, because they'll tell you that you use 10% of your brain, that you're a monkey, and that you were created to be a slave. That's to beat your morals down to your morale so that you can be easily controlled. And that's why they tell you that, so that you only use 10% of your brain. If you tell someone that they're stupid, they're going to start acting stupid. You tell someone they're retarded, they're going to start acting retarded. But if you tell someone that
That's
they're
it.
really smart, then they're going to start acting very smart, and they're going to become smart. If you hang out with poor, you'll stay poor. But if you hang out with the rich, you'll become rich. Right? So it's the same analogy. It's, I don't know.
What do you want to experience in this world, in this life? Let's go right back to that. This is what we came here. We charted out a certain, path for us, but we gave many detours that we could, and new ones that come along.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's how I see it. That's how I've always seen it since I can remember. Is we come here to enjoy life, put our feet in the dirt, play in the mud sometimes if we want to. You know what I mean? Take a swim in the ocean, surf in the ocean. I mean, not to say that in the etheric worlds there is an experience there as well. I mean, I feel like we still have that interaction that we do here, but we're heavy here. It's very dense in this
It feels
dense
very
in this
real.
density.
Yeah, this is more physical, where you can feel butterflies in your stomach. And
Right.
But when you're not physical, I'm sure you have that same euphoria going on, right? But nothing at on the level that it is here, right? Because you're feeling it
Right.
physically, right? So
Yep.
enjoy yourselves, right? Love each
That's
other.
it.
Make love, not war. It's it's what we're about. So if it takes more effort, more resource to hate and kill one another. You know what I'm
It
saying?
does.
What is it? I heard some stat there on YouTube a couple days ago that the world spends like $6 trillion a year on armaments and defense. Now, if we weren't so paranoid, we could take that $6 trillion and we could invest it towards education, hospitals, spirituality,
Infrastructure.
space
Yep.
programs, housing for everyone, right? Food for everyone, clean skies.
Right.
We could do that. We have that capacity and that potential and the technology to do it. But it's the people, the powers that be,
Right.
the demons that are in power, they want us like this. And
That's it.
Right.
and we're a
If
real
we don't
threat
get
to
rid of
these
them-
people.
if we don't get them out of their power, then nothing's going to change.
Right.
You know,
I mean, really, we can change some things. But they don't need to change for the better, or they need to be ousted. I mean, really, the decisions that a small fraction affect all of us,
Yeah.
and that's wrong. That's a serious imbalance of power.
Government doesn't work, and what we got going on right now is an illusionary democracy.
Right.
And
Yep.
these guys, they tell you that your vote counts and that your voice matters, but at the end of the day,
And
it
after
really
they
doesn't.
prove to us
You
that
go
it doesn't
ahead.
matter, we're all still talking about how we all need to get out and vote.
Yeah, I know. Let's vote. Like, why? It's stagecraft 101, people. I
You
promise.
go ahead and
It's this everything they do.
I can prove it to you.
Go
You
ahead.
go ahead and go down to the city hall and toss your name into the ballot for the next mayor's race or as a constituent in your community.
Yeah.
And go ahead and see what happens. Because when you go in there and you try to file for it, they're going to try to discredit you and they're going to look into your background. And if you got a parking ticket, they'll bring that up. But if a community businessman who's being backed by the Chamber of Commerce, if he goes and puts his name in for the ballot, he's going to be elected. He's going to be elected because he represents the commerce, not you. So then he's going to take your thoughts to Washington or to Ottawa. In the case of Canada, then he's not taking your voice there. He's taking the voice of business and commerce there. You don't matter to him. So when you go out there and vote for these institutions, all you're doing is just digging yourself a deeper hole. You say you hate the government, don't go vote for it. You say you hate the bank, don't put your money in it. Don't put your money in it.
That's
Every time
right.
you check and deposit it, all you're doing is you're throwing more fuel on the fire and digging your grave even a little bit deeper. And you're going back on the very thing that you supposedly say that you believe in. If you say that you hate the banks, don't put your money in the bank. If you say that you hate someone, you don't go drinking beers with them now, do you? Right? So, the same thing here. We can easily defeat these people. Just think, there's 1% of them 99 of us. Now imagine if 99
That's
people
it.
ganged up on one person. What would happen to that one person? That one person
Oh,
would
they'd be
get
smashed.
pummeled, beaten down to the ground, probably to the
Yeah.
death, right? We could do the same thing to these 1%. It's very simple. It's very easy, but there's huge consequences to it. Those consequences are the actions of our ancestors. The way you do it, Monday morning comes, don't go to work. Monday morning comes, the first of the month, don't pay your rent, don't pay your mortgage, don't go to work, don't pay any of your bills. What are they going to do? Are they going to come into your city and evict every single
I've been
person
saying
in your
that
city?
forever.
But we all have to do it at the same
You all
time.
have to do
That's
it.
the point.
That's what I'm
If
saying.
we just one of us does it, it's kind of like a truth telling. It's like truth telling, right? And talking about truth, speaking truth.
Mhm.
You know, there's not many people that do it, so we get marginalized. You know, the truth tellers get marginalized. We get chosen few of them, and a few of them that want to do that. So they are as much as, I mean, we're making a big impact.
Oh, yeah.
They're-
But imagine if there were, you know, 3 times as many of us doing this,
Mhm.
how much things would change just because
Right.
we're changing people's consciousness and
That's
their
right.
perception and the way they look at things.
That's what I've
You
been
know,
saying.
that really, it does depend on what all of our actions.
Yes.
If you had thousands of
Yeah,
people
I've been
in
saying
every
that for a
city-
long time. If all of us would just not pay our bills,
If thousands
ahead.
of us did that,
Go ahead, Omar.
tens of
Yes.
thousands of us in every single city, unified in sequence throughout the entire world,
yes.
the banks would collapse. The government would be forced to
Yep.
come to you to negotiate with you. They'd be like, "What do you want?" Your answer would be, "We don't want you." So beat it,
Right.
right? You know,
Yeah.
we want our elders to be in power. We want our community leaders from our
Yeah.
community, people that have proven themselves to be our voice. Those
That's
are the
right.
people that we want. We don't want money. Money is a problem, right? The fact that, you know, money in itself is not the problem, but the ideology of money is. That is the problem because, you know, they say, oh, the money is the root of all evil. I say no. Not having any money is the root of evil so far. Because if you have
Yes.
money, you don't go around killing and robbing. But when you don't have money, you're going to go
Right.
out, you're going to steal, rob, kill for that money, and you're going to commit atrocities to get that money. So not having money is the issue. So if you eliminate the money and you go on a community standard, so in your community, like my community here, 500 people live in this community. Now, 500 people in this community, if they all came out and volunteered one day, 8 hours of their time for one day a week, how much labor is that going into my community? 500 times 8. That's more labor hours than any corporation would get. That's more
I
labor
know we're
hours
talking
any
Ubuntu,
business would get.
You're talking
You can
Ubuntu, the Ubuntu movement, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. You know, you work with your community. You grow your own food. You take care of your own community. And when you have access, then you share that with the next community. If they have extra cheese and you
Right.
have extra milk, share it. Or, you know, bread. You know,
Right.
exchange it so that, you know, your community has cheese and their community has bread. Everyone has equal. You exchange services. You elect your elders to be your teachers. You know, not teachers
Yeah.
to teach you about history. That's all garbage because history is written by the victor. So whatever that's written in history books right now, it's all garbage, right? None of it counts because it's all either written by, you know, war victors or conquerors. So none of
Right.
it.
Even in religious texts, folks. Even
That's
in
right.
religious texts.
That's right, because those are the conquerors.
That's
They
it.
can't be conquered. Not only do they want to conquer your mind, but they want to conquer your spirit as well. So keep
Yes.
that in mind as well. So it's all written by the victor. You know, if all
Tammy,
of us work
you wanna
together
say
in our
anything?
communities, we would be ahead.
Yep.
We have
I
a
didn't
lot of
see any
love
other
to give.
Tammy's question.
We have a
How
lot
we
of
doing
love
on that?
to
We
give.
got a question. Well, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Tammy, do you have any other questions you want to ask Omar? You just unmute. It'll pick up. You should be okay. It did last time. Okay, so anyway, let's check out Watchers Talk. Please go to his YouTube page and his Facebook page. Like and follow. Who do you have? You have any? What's your lineup coming up?
I've got a pretty good lineup actually. I'm working on a webinar for the summer solstice. It's going to be my sweep down under. That's going to be
I'm
happening.
good, but I think I've
Say
seen.
the other two.
I think I've seen some questions. There were some questions.
Okay, hold on one sec. Omar's just finishing up.
I've got. I'm going to do it this week.
He's talking about yourself.
I've got some fantastic researchers from down under in Australia and Indonesia that we're going to be featuring. It's going to be a 2-day event, and we're just going to do a sweep of Australia because I feel that researchers.
I could talk about this all night long, all night. It is so awesome. I don't have any more questions. There was a couple, I think, in the feed on Facebook, but I think they got answered by everything that you touched on. This was an amazing show, and I cannot wait till you come back on again.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Bravo, you did a great job.
You really
need to,
did.
Hey, we need to see your face a little bit more, in your shows.
Yeah.
Just a tip.
My idea behind that.
But anyway, you said you've got a summer solstice coming up, right?
Yeah.
Summer solstice webinar.
Yeah, I got a huge webinar coming up. I'm just reaching out to all my friends and researchers down in Australia and Indonesia, hoping to bring you guys some Sunderland, Atlantis, some where humanity began, the out of Australia. To me, it's not a theory anymore. To me, it's a fact. Out of Australia, going to have hopefully Evan and Stephen Strong coming on doing a lecture. A good friend of mine, Ildi Bowdy, she's going to be coming on. Actually, I was going to have her on last night doing a webinar on Egypt, but unfortunately, due to life, her presentation wasn't fully complete, so we postponed that for a few days. So hopefully we'll bring her on. She always has great webinars and lots of information about Egypt. And then I've got Chris O'Brien coming on. I've got Glenn Clark coming on. I've got Gary David coming on. The list goes on. I've got Neil Gore coming on in a few days. He's got a huge conference coming up down in California that I'm going to be attending in October. So we're going to be streaming live from there. We've got 30 speakers that are going to be over the course of 3 days that are going to be doing a lot of presentations. So we're going to interview them, stream them, and just keep writing articles on our website. Guaranteed when you go to our website, the articles that you'll read there are going to, be kind of in your face, down to the fact, truth, references available down at the bottom, so that you can do your own homework. We'll provide, we'll pave the road for you and point the way. But at a certain point, the road's not going to be paved anymore, and you're going to have to pave it yourself. We'll give you a little bit of information, but the rest you have to come up with your own. And really, that's it. And when you see our sponsored ads on our website, don't be afraid to click those, because that funds us and it helps us to deliver a lot of speakers and conferences and webinars and such. And so it doesn't come out of your pocket. It's kind of like a donation. So that's awesome. All good. And to go back to being on camera, Aaron,
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
I appreciate it. This was a great show. The viewers were loving it. I'd love to have you back here in a couple of months. I'd love to be back on your show. Your show's awesome.
Love it, brother.
But yeah, everybody check him out. And, you put that plug in there about your sponsors. I feel like we have to do that as well. Tammy Winterstrom and Norma they're basically selling and distributing CTFO, which is CBD oils and product.
All CBD product.
We're trying to get rid of, let's get big pharma out of there a little bit. Let's edge our way in. Like we're talking about, make your own changing world. Take your own actions, right? And this is the way to do it.
I like that, Aaron. And if they want, you can put them in contact with me. I'll take some of their products and put them on my website and link it back to them. And hopefully it can help drive some traffic their way. We get thousands of visitors a day. We've got almost 2 million visits in the last 2 years to our website, so it's very active. So if I can help in any way, let me know. I can be more than happy to put their link on my site and help out. And to go back to being on camera, Aaron, there's strategy behind that, brother. The reason being is
I know.
I'm not the highlight of the show, and for me it's about my speaker, and it's all about my speaker. So the more I can highlight my speaker and my presenter, the better it is for me, because if I wanted to promote myself, I could live stream every day if I wanted to, right? But there's the odd times on some of my interviews where you'll see me on camera, and sometimes, majority of the time, not. But but then I do shows like this, and I'm on camera. I don't mind. But for me, my main focus is for my show is I highlight the speaker, and that's it. They're the key factor there. They're the ones who are going to be delivering the lecture, educating people, and I don't think that my mug should be sitting along there beside them. They should cover up the entire screen.
Okay, and what he was saying is I'm a little bit camera shy.
Yeah.
It's okay, man. It's okay.
That's
I
right.
know. I'm just kidding. Hey, brother, I love you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you very
Tammy,
much.
thank you for being on here.
Yes.
We'll
Thank
get
you very
that.
much. Honor to you on your show, brother. I look
next
forward to it
time.
again. Much love, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Much love. Namaste.